Holistic thinking is thinking with all four functions of the soul: the emotion, thought, intuition, and sensation. All four functions of the soul, instead of just isolating that one function and putting that one function on a pedestal. In today's society, we tend to value the male traits over the feminine traits. So I think that's where it comes from, to be honest. It's where we're putting the values at. Whereas they say your thoughts create your reality. It's not just any thought. It's a particular type of thought. It's an amplified thought. A thought is amplified either through emotional intensity or repetition. You can shift your reality by shifting your perspective of reality. How one thing could lead to this, that, and then it could lead you all the way back here. Whenever you feel powerless, you're going to feel the need to escape, to use some form of escapism in order to create the illusion of control. You can trust the process a whole lot more when you know what the hell the process is. Change happens every day. Change is literally the nature of the whole entire universe. And so just because I can't see how it's possible for somebody to change, I would never say that it will never happen. It's not my job. We're programmed to like the music. We have no choice. It's a programming. It's literally programming your subconscious mind. The hooks are to hook your attention. They're to catch your attention, make something catchy. And it doesn't even have to be something good. But once they have a catch, then you're hooked and you're in there. They pulled you inside of this matrix. Subliminal messages bypass the conscious logical mind. So you're not using your logic. You're just vibing to the beat. We have an addiction and a toxic relationship to the system that we're in relation to, where we know it's bad for us. We know that they're not serving, our greatest good, and we still feed the system. So the shadow aspects of you are the parts of your personality that you shut out. You try to avoid this type of personality or these types of traits because most of the time we're associated with something bad. Whenever we're restricting or hiding parts of ourselves, it's restricting and hiding parts of our reality that we want to access, period. And the more flow you have within yourself, the more flow you'll experience in your outer world, right?
Welcome to tonight's episode of The Health King's Court. I'm your host, Zach the Health King. A quick disclaimer to keep myself out of trouble. Anything that you hear in this podcast is not intended to be taken as medical advice. The thoughts and opinions you hear shared are just that, thoughts and opinions. And any action that you take based on what you hear is done at your own risk. And with that said, enjoy the show. Welcome everybody to today's episode of The Health King's Court, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Health. I'm your host, Zach the Health King, and it is a pleasure to introduce today's guest. Today's guest is a spiritual teacher and a holistic thinking coach. She uses modeling and simulation to teach the art and anatomy of soul, which includes holistic thinking manifestation, which she calls the DMT manifestation method. This method is based on the realization that our souls are systematic and are the part of us made in the image of God. She believes that if you can figure out a system's feedback loops, then you can master the system. And that's what she helps people do. And that is Akila. Akila, welcome to the show.
Hi. Hello.
So there's a lot of interesting things I said right in that introduction, a lot of terms and phrases and things that people might not be familiar with. So let's just start diving into a couple of those terms. Let's start with holistic thinking, because that's kind of one of your primary modalities and your primary things that you promote. Can you define holistic thinking for us?
Yes, so holistic, the key word there being whole. So it's thinking in wholeness. So if I was to say, all right, as far as thought, we have nonlinear thinking, we have linear thinking, and the nonlinear modes of thinking is the emotional and the intuitive functions. The linear modes of thinking are more so thinking with the senses and thinking with the logical mind.
And so holistic thinking is a combination of those two?
All of those functions. So all of the four functions of the soul. Holistic thinking is thinking with all four functions of the soul: the emotion, thought, intuition, and sensation. Whereas in today's society, we tend to just put like thought itself on a pedestal. The objective is to balance your emotions, thoughts, intuitions, and sensations. And so that's holistic. All four functions of the soul instead of just isolating that one function and putting that one function on a pedestal.
And so, why do you think a lot of people, or even most people, are stuck in that one form of thinking? Is that a more default sense of thinking and people just haven't learned the other ones? Or have people kind of been put into that box of thinking like that? Where does that issue come from?
Lack of knowledge for sure. And I also think because like thought and sensation are the more masculine energies versus intuition and emotion, they're feminine. And in today's society, we tend to value the male traits over the feminine traits. So I think that's where it comes from, to be honest, is where we're putting the values at.
Interesting. Interesting. And so you think that that's a universal constant or even a societal constant that people have been led to think more like men, whether they are a man or a woman. Is that correct?
I do think that I see it being widespread, but however, I won't talk about too many other cultures because I haven't studied enough of them yet. But from here, where I am in America, yes.
Why do you think that is? Well, why do you think society has pushed to make women think like men? What's the goal behind that?
I'd say for one, women are pretty mysterious, so I think there's just a lack of understanding, like other things. So I'd like to say maybe it's the mystery. Me thinking from a more optimistic perspective is that maybe it's the mystery behind women and just not really understanding what these functions are really for and how they work and conduct themselves. So that's from an optimistic perspective. If we're thinking from, the other side, more pessimistic, then maybe it's for power and control because the feminine forces have a lot of power with them.
True. And which one do you think is more of the realist alignment?
Oh, it's definitely the masculine forces. But what that means is that they go more based off of what they can see in the world right now. Whereas though the intuitive functions and the emotional functions know that, like intuition knows that everything in reality is more than meets the eye. So it really doesn't matter. Like you just going based off of what's in the world when everything comes from the spiritual realm, it doesn't even make sense. You understand? Like, it's not even the more sensible thing to do. Intuition understands that everything comes from the inside. So we don't overconsume ourselves or get distraught about what we see on the outside because we know that's just a result of something else. So even though something doesn't exist right now in this moment, it can exist if we put if we put our attention towards that thing.
Yeah, and I really think that the conversation of masculinity and femininity and the feminine frame and masculine frame is one of the most important conversations of today because I agree with you that femininity has been squashed within women. And it's interesting though, because at the same time, while we can say, yes, women have been either forced or coerced or encouraged to be more masculine, I think it's also true that men have been reduced to the more the less impactful and less important parts of what actually is masculinity in its entirety. I think when men have been reduced to being like that hyper realist or so-called realist or that hyper logical thing and also forget their own emotion and their own intuition in their masculine frame, I think that's a disservice to themselves as well. So it's kind of like everyone's under attack, isn't it?
Everyone's- Everybody, yeah. So that's the holistic thinking is embracing your masculine and feminine and understanding that those characteristics are within everybody, whether or not you're male or female.
Yeah. And so what kind of got you into this realm of work or realm of study? What kind of got you thinking about how things are going on behind the scenes in people's heads?
Um, it just was, I guess, a calling. So yeah, the story starts out just weird, I guess. Whereas I was into, I learned about the law of attraction because I had someone, I quit my job. The last job I've ever worked in my entire life was a job that I had in high school. And my last customer on my last day, he gave me the book called The Law of Attraction. And I didn't go to college. My family just couldn't afford it at the time. It wasn't even an option so much. So we didn't even speak about it. Like there was no conversation. So I don't know, maybe when he gave me this book, I just felt so optimistic about the whole idea of people being able to create their own reality. And so I believed some of the things that I was hearing, but like in the book of how you can use like the asking you shall receive prayer, and whatever you ask, you will receive it. You just got to expect it. So I asked the question and I just started to basically channel all of this information. All of this information just came through to me like in different forms, through different knowings and inklings and symbols, which is the Dream Music Trinity symbol, which is the model. It's a model of the soul based on sacred geometry. And yeah, I would just like look at it and then I just started like writing things. And so it's a very mysterious um,
And
way of getting information.
so I want to explore something there because you said believed in past tense. So you said you believed in some of the things that you were reading in that book, The Law of
Oh no,
Attraction.
I believe but I'm I know. So knowing is beyond believing. I heard a guru say once, when you park your car and you walk off, you know where you parked your car. You don't believe you parked it in the parking lot. You know you parked it in the parking lot. So there's a difference there. So it's definitely something I know I've experimented with enough times, and it's came through for me for sure. So yeah, in very mysterious ways. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I know it's not your, work, and I know you've expanded beyond that. Perhaps that was your foundational introduction to the realm of thinking and work that you're in. But can you share some of maybe the key takeaways that you took from that book specifically?
Yes. So what I've developed on from that book that separates my knowledge from the foundational knowledge is holistic thinking manifestation. It's my particular method, the method that I learned. Because when I use the ask and you shall receive prayer, that's what I asked for. I asked to know what the manifestation process was. Because using the ask and you shall receive prayer is a tool that you can use to manifest, but it's not the process. Like that's not the process. That's just a tool you can use within the process. And you can use a lot of different tools, and those tools just, simply depend on your personality and what you prefer. So in the book, I found that it was a lot of tools that taught me how to manifest. And so I asked, what is the manifestation process? So in the book, it's you can create your reality. It's, consciousness, which you focus on grows with something that I learned in the book. So your thoughts, whatever you're focusing on with your thoughts, will manifest in their non-bias. So I've taken it to develop it as far as holistic thinking because there's a lot of emphasis with your thoughts create your reality. And where that throws a lot of people off at is that if I think of an apple right now, that apple is not going to appear in my hand. So a lot of people are just like, this is woo-woo, like this is stupid. They write it off, trash it. It did not put emphasis on a process. It didn't even mention a process at all. When in all actuality, that's what it is. It's a process. So the reason I can think apple and this apple is not going to appear is because there's a process that has to happen before your manifestation comes through. So thinking of the process, gives way to the system, which is the parts that are performing the process. And that's holistic, thinking of the whole. So whereas they say your thoughts create your reality, it's not just any thought, it's a particular type of thought. It's an amplified thought. A thought is amplified either through emotional intensity or repetition. So you see how now we took it from thought and now we brought in the element of emotion, another function of the soul. So now you see those two functions right there. And then what happens after that, that gives way to the third function, which is intuition, is once that thought is amplified, your intuition then kicks in and tries to guide you towards your goal in the highest way possible, in the best way possible. And it's the body, the sensations, it sends messages through your sensations, your gut instincts, just different sensations, whether it's an image in your mind. So now we're dealing with the fourth element, sensation. It's sending signals to you, your intuition, to and your body's job is now to follow those intuitions into action. And remember, the intuitions are coming through your senses. It's coming through your body.
And so if people have the thought, they feel it strongly, they might even feel it strongly for a long period of time and have that repetition, but they ignore the last part, being the intuition and the internal guidance. That's the missing element, perhaps, for many, many people
For sure.
Who aren't doing what they would like to achieve. But let's talk about another part of intuition, right? Let's back up and talk about the initial, perhaps, thought. Because I think when we have thoughts just come into our head, right? I think perhaps into a function of our intuition is to kind of screen those thoughts as well.
Absolutely.
I think if that's something that we should attach to, apply energy to, apply amplification to, if that will bring us in a good direction or perhaps lead us off what our particular track is. Do you have any thoughts on that role of intuition?
I do. I definitely do. Okay. So this is what I say, because I use the elements, right, to like water, air, earth, and fire to explain how the functions of the soul interact with each other. So our intuition is water, and then our thoughts is represented by the air element, right? So air holds water. So that's symbolic of the fact that every thought comes directly with an intuition that tells you the vibration of that thought. It comes with an insight about that thought. Every thought comes with the consciousness of that thought and what it could potentially like cause, what type of causes it can have on your life, what type of effect it can have in your life. So yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that. And that's part of just intuition, just trying to pinpoint you in the best direction, like your GPS is trying to get you there the fastest way, but the most efficient way too, so that you avoid all of the traffic and the accidents and the bad stuff. That's your intuition. But also your intuition is like Chat GPT or search engine optimizing, right? SEO. So in the sense that intuition doesn't force us to do something, like our intuition is at our service, but it serves us. Like we serve it too. So it's an interaction. It's a relationship, and it's not just one-sided. So if today I was to change my goals, if I don't want to be a coach anymore, and I say, hey, I want to be a football player, then
you might have to work on the logic and thought part of that too.
My intuition is going to be like, okay, I'm just going to find the best way to get you there. It doesn't matter what the goal is. It's just trying to find the best way to get you to that goal. Mm-hmm. So like with Chat GPT, you ask it something. Remember I said I used the ask and you shall receive prayer, and it gave me an answer. That's how intuition works. You can ask questions. You can do different things to channel and activate your intuition so that it works for you. And of course, when you do search engine optimization, it's going to pull up the best answer first. So that's what your intuition is trying to do. It's trying to just give you the best answer, the highest answer, the answer that's in the highest frequency for you. Now, that's the best match for you. And it's based off clarity. That clarity is thought. So you're holding that your focus, right? But it needs to be clear. The clearer it is, the better. The better it can help you. The better it can serve you.
Now, do you think these practices are a form of prayer? Because a lot of people, even particularly religious folk of different natures, they often look at exploration and exploring the mind and exploring things of this nature as demonic or against God or satanic or like what's going on there? Why is there you think such a disconnect? And where do you place these types of behaviors in the spectrum of, in accordance with God or against God?
Awesome. So manifestation is our divine nature, period. It's when the Bible says you're made in the image of the creator. That's what it means. Since you're made in the image of a creator, then you also have creative ability. That's all that manifestation is learning how you can create your reality. However, we live in, a reality where certain systems have authority over us, like our government, and there's other rules out here. What we don't understand is these are second order systems. The first system is your power. The second system, which is a result of your power or your lack of awareness of your power, is the government and the school systems, every other system that functions in reality. That's a second order system. That's a second order power structure. The first power structure is you, your divinity, what's inside of you, those aspects that allow you to create your reality. But what happens is those second order systems hold power. It's like they reverse the order of power. So they hold all of the power by, us just not knowing whether it's done intentionally to, I'm trying not to be,
Hey, whatever, say whatever you need to say, my friend.
whether it's done intentionally or not, but they know because they use it. They use the power. Like they use manifestation. They use manifestation techniques. So prayer is a form of a manifestation technique, but it's not the process itself. It's a technique, as I was saying earlier, like it's just a technique, but it's the reason it works is because of the process and the way the process works, the creative functions that it engages. So, for example, when you're doing prayer, you're dealing with the voice, right? Communication. So that's like the second step in the manifestation process. All right, you're speaking and you're speaking things into existence, but you're also listening too, because listening is a part of being a good communicator, right? So you're listening too. And by you listening and communicating, you're listening to your intuition, which is another voice. That's the inner voice. You're using those voices, and the voice is a creative force. It's not the power of the tongue, it's the power of the voice, because your voice emits frequencies, right? And that interacts with like the water in your body, because water holds frequency. It holds vibrations. We learned that from cymatics, which taught us about, how water and sound interact with each other. And they showed us, how the water created like crystals in it that were like in snowflakes if the music was good and harmonious. And when it was like bad and just like dissonant, it created these very chaotic shapes and forms. The vibration of the voice. The tongue has nothing to do with it. Okay. And it's the speech that uses the words, because our words the power of the words, which is still the power of the voice, because the voice is the one that's using the words, right? That's formulating the words, right? And words it can distort reality for us. It can allow us to access reality, or it can distort reality for us. So if I was to give you an example, when they say made in the image of God, no one knows what the hell that means. Till this day, I don't know the exact year when the Bible was made. I'm not gonna lie to you, but no one really knows what that means. But if I say made in the image of Goddess, which is what I teach people, I can make it make sense to you just like this, right? Because when you think of all of the forces, all of the parts that create our reality, they have a shape. All of the shapes are the same, right? The shape is the same. So if we're talking about the vulva, right? The goddess, let's just say the goddess is the vulva. The voice, right? The voice is represented by the lips. That lip is in a vescopiscus shape or a vulva-like shape. The vulva being the womb, so to speak, the face of the womb. All right. So the womb, as we know, or the vulva, that's where the baby comes through. It gives birth through physical labor, right? And then the voice shares that same shape. It's just turned in a different direction. But this shape is called the vescopiscus. The eyes share the same shape as the lips and the vulva. The DNA spiral also shares the shape. So what all of these things have in common is that they allow us to create our reality in some type of way. So the voice speaks things into existence, but also your intuition. Following your intuition helps to connect you to your dreams and intentions, right? Even the voices around you impact your reality. They help shape your destiny. For example, if you grew up and people around you were reinforcing good things into you, telling you you're beautiful, telling you that you can do it, and really motivating you, then that you increase the chances of that child being successful. When they say really negative things about that child growing up, and that's all you hear is negative things, the child's going to have a really hard time in the world, right? So the voice definitely impacts our reality and allows us to create our reality, and it has a vesicapiscus shape or a vulva-like shape. Consciousness, which you focus on, grows. So you're talking about, the eyes, and you even have an inner eye as well, the mind's eye. So, yeah, so whatever you focus on grows. It increases that thing. So if you focus on good things, the more chances of you experiencing good things. If you focus on bad things, the more chances if that's all you see when you look out in the world is bad, then that's what you're going to experience. You can shift your reality by shifting your perspective of reality, right? Or if you even want to put it in a more practical or realistic way that doesn't sound so woo, right? Think about the things that you see in your environment growing up, right? The things that you grow up around. Seeing is believing. So seeing those things, you're more inclined to repeat those things. Those things are more inclined to repeat in your reality as you grow up, the things that you saw. So, for example, if you saw a really good relationship between your mom and your dad growing up and they were married, the more chances of you repeating that behavior, those behaviors grow into traditions or just, you see what I'm saying here? Into traditions and just habits, right? The things that you see. Or if you grow up and you see an abusive relationship or toxic relationship, then you're more inclined to repeating that behavior, right? So seeing is believing, which you focus on grows. Okay. And then you have the vulva, women give birth. That's where life comes through. So, okay. But even the body, which comes through the vulva, gives birth through physical labor. So it has and derives its power from the portal that it comes through. So women, when we're in birth, they say you're going into labor, right? The body gives birth through physical labor. So we also give birth by, building things. And that's another part of holistic thinking because society puts this emphasis on work, 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 as if that's the only thing that's going to allow us to create our reality is doing physical work. But we know that's crap because there are people who don't do as much physical labor and they make all of the profit, right? So it's not all about, physical labor, but and there's more that we can do than just create with our body. There's other ways that create our reality. So it's also knowing that the other aspects that create our reality that aren't our body as well. The body is just part of it, right? And then the last one is the DNA spiral, which creates our appearance, our health, and our instinctual behaviors, right? So what you get from the vulva and the DNA spiral, which that double helix strain is definitely in a vulva shape, right? Is the way how you manipulate this in reality is we have an overwhelming amount of power. Whereas though I tell somebody that we create our reality, they're like, you believe that? When the truth is we really have an overwhelming amount of power, because even if you think about just the body, we're not really tapping into this stuff. You can create a specific, if you want specific traits, right? You can literally go out and pick someone who has those traits and make that a part of your tradition to produce these people with nice, dark, long hair, or what we can get crazy with it. If we really want it to be intentional, right? Or health. If you wanted someone, with particular state of health, like good conditions, you can pick people based on hey, Like, what type of diseases run in your family? What type, do you guys have athletes in your family? Do you have a family of athletes? And if you reproduce with like a family of athletes, then you're more inclined to having an athletic, an athletic child or athletic lineage. Like we can get really particular here if we wanted to, right? And then, the instinctual behaviors. And that's just about, figuring out what type of instinctual behaviors somebody has and, targeting those behaviors is about understanding your family patterns. Do you come from a family of single women? Do you come from a family of, traditional family? Things like that. Do you come from a family of drug addicts? Is there a lot of trauma being passed down? Or is there a lot of triumph being passed down? And it's not to say that you can always recreate these things. So even if you are like, mating with somebody and they do have a lot of trauma in their bloodline, if it's a conscious individual that you're dealing with and they know that they have power to, manipulate and reverse these things, then you can deal. It's okay. Like, you know what I mean? If you feel love between you and that person, regardless of their, ancestral background, you can still create something new. You can still, reverse the curse, the generational curses of that thing. So we have an enormous amount of power to create our reality into something that we personally desire. And this power is God given. It's your divine, it's literally your divine nature and birthright. You inherited it from the creator.
Yeah.
It's only right.
Mate selection is something that I agree is far too overlooked or just not even really thought of. You got everyone having babies with everyone out there and not really giving it any thought, and that's
None whatsoever
responsible for much of the plight, the difficulty and garbage that we see today. And it's an interesting discussion because it is evident that the selection pool on average is pretty crap these days. Like how do you find someone that is not only themselves good, but their family is also good?
Yeah,
And it's, not something to get hung up on, like you mentioned, because I think now more so than ever, we are seeing people break cycles that have gone on for far too long in different families and different generations of suffering and disease and all sorts of chaos. So, it is something worth considering. Hey, their family's crap, but they're being real good. So let's consider that. And I just want to back up a little bit and talk about work because you mentioned an interesting thing about how society's been led to be very work oriented and work focused and how that's detrimental. But I think a layer of that beyond the surface is that people's definition of work has been limited to just job. I think everything should be treated like work and it's not. And that's part of the problem. To me, okay, what you do for money, that's work. Yes. I think when you're taking care of your body and exercising, that's work. Eating right, that's work. Maintaining relationships with your family and with your, loved ones and whoever, with your children, that's work. I think when you walk around the world and make sure that you are presenting in a positive and whatever manner that you wish to be, that's work. Sleeping right, that's work. Drinking enough water, that's work. And people aren't treating these things as such. People are just considering, oh, I do my work when I clock in, clock out, and get my money, okay. And then treat the other things so casually and so, laissez-faire that that's one of the major reasons that people aren't having a positive existence or a good time in life because they should be working more, but they're just la-di-da being lazy in all the important areas of life and not considering it like work.
Yeah. I think it's the way society is structured to put like we only have a limited amount of energy. Like we don't have a ton of energy, creative energy every day. Like you don't have a ton of it. So I feel like the way society is structured puts like an overemphasis on, job and working to provide income in those sections, like doing that type of physical labor. So when it comes to the other stuff, we're just tired. We're exhausted. we're exhausted. And that's another thing. Like these are all systems. Like you have to, all of these are systems. You have a system for all of these. The only system we seem to be focused on is the job system, the work schedule. Like that's it. Because like I said, it's just the way society is structured. So for instance, I was thinking about this the other day, how a structure directs the energy of like consciousness, right? Directs the flow of consciousness, right? So if you think of like these houses, these cookie cutter houses, and the majority of houses that's been built, and how they have about this much land on it. So what that does is direct our attention toward not growing our food because we have this much land. So subconsciously, our consciousness is being directed towards going and purchasing, this trash food because of the structure, the way the structure is built.
Yeah, absolutely. And in every realm of society, in every major system, you can view, if you have eyes that can see, how they are shaping the general person to just continually give more control to the system.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting conversation because, yes, there's a lot of bad people and bad entities out there doing a lot of bad things and keeping people down. But most people are allowing themselves to be kept down. That's the big kicker. That's the big kicker that's not talked about enough because it's
Yeah.
so much easier to say, oh, well, society and the banks and this, that, the other, they're making me poor. And I guess I'll just be poor. I don't have time to do this.
Yeah.
Listen, nobody said it's going to be easy. Nobody
Yeah.
said it's going to be fair. Nobody said everything's going to be stacked in your favor.
Yeah. Seriously.
So I think a big part of the picture that's missing for most people, especially as they dive into realms of consciousness and hey, the world does actually work like this, and they kind of peek beyond the veil of surface level reality and start to see how much craziness is going on actually. I think a lot of people get stuck in the blame game of, oh, well, these people are out to get me. These things are not fair. So that's why I'm not doing good. That's why I can't be healthy. That's why I don't have the energy to think about the things that matter. Well, listen, that's part of the task here in life. Figure it out. It's a cycle that has to be broken, but then there's that positive reinforcement of if you do kind of break the cycle in a little way in that, okay, well, I'm gonna not eat as much garbage food. Let me eat a little better food. Bam, now you have more energy. Now you could think about things. Okay, I'm gonna focus on getting good sleep and not staying up playing video games or watching TV. Okay, now you get a little more energy. Okay, I'm gonna, do this and make sure I don't spend time around draining people and all this garbage and let that in. Well, now you have more energy. It's decisions that we make that determine our energy. Yes, everyone might have a finite absolute potential, but I think people aren't living up to that potential and they keep themselves down here, which then keeps themselves down there. And that's why I'll always bring things back to actionables and to personal accountability and responsibility because life's not supposed to be fair. Nobody said it was going to be fair. So why does everyone want it to be fair? Why does everyone expect the powers that be and the systems that be to just, be your best friend and look out for you? Look out for yourself. That's the whole point of life here. Look out for your family and help them too.
So I would like to point out the fact that you just used and exercised holistic thinking. You understood how things interconnect and ultimately relate to each other. That's what you just did. You seen the relationship between these things and how ultimately this and that and that and that could lead to you having more energy, which could lead to you being able to, do what you got to do to change the system into what you want it to be, to have the energy to do the other things that you need to do throughout your day, to do the other work. You just drew the connection of how those things could feed back to affect you and positively influence you having that energy. So that's what holistic thinking is, understanding the interconnectedness of things, how one thing could lead to this, that, and that, and then it could lead you all the way back here. how things don't just go in a line. It's never going to be in a line. It's always going to be like what looks chaotic and almost it's called circular thinking also. So holistic thinking is circular thinking, and this is um feminine. This is the feminine way of thinking. That's why they say women are complex. We're not really complex, but I don't think so. But women tend to be circular thinkers. Circular, in sacred geometry, the circle represents the woman. The line represents the man. Like men are more boxed, women are more curvy. The curves always represent femininity. And yeah, so like I said, there's two types of thinking. There's linear thinking and nonlinear thinking. The nonlinear thinking is holistic, it's circular thinking. The linear thinking is practical thinking, basically. So yeah, with holistic thinking, you understand the overall system, how each part affects the other, and the relationships between those parts within the system.
Yeah, and that's really the only way to exist in the real world, I think. I think anyone that's not practicing what you just described is not even living in the real world. They're just living trapped in this kind of complexly weaved net that different things have weaved to keep people in that net. Because unless you're able to comprehend things at the meta level, like you just described, you're really not understanding where you even exist. And if you don't understand where you exist in the world and what the world is, how can you even have a direction? And how could you even follow your intuition to kind of guide yourself through it? And this is why we see people eternally existing in a state of being lost. I think that's the word that most describes most people, just lost. And whether they're conscious of it, just not able to change it, not knowing how to change it rather, or completely unconscious of it because they don't even spend time thinking about it, perhaps because they don't have the mental capacity or the time capacity or what have you. I think that's really what describes most people, just lost in this world. And that's why we see people lashing out, because when you're lost, then you're suffering and then you just try to cling to something. And people cling to all sorts of things, don't they? When you feel lost, you need to find stabilization. There's just an internal peace that's like, oh my God, I need some sort of stability. And that's when you see people diving into certain identities, I think. Whether it is, I am so and so job, and that's my whole identity. Then they have a stable ground. I am so and so's girlfriend, boyfriend, and that becomes my whole identity. I am a sports fan, and I am, everything in my life regards around this sport or this team or this TV show or this video game, and or being a furry or like just some weird thing that people dive into and just make their whole foundation because they have no actual foundation in reality.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, that's not really a question. If you have any thoughts on that, though.
Yeah, I do. So just like forms of escapism from reality,
Yeah.
basically, is definitely what that is, because of what that results in. The core, foundation of that is just feeling powerless. So whenever you feel powerless, like you don't have any reality, like you don't have any power in reality, which is completely false. It's false. It's false. Like I said, we have an overwhelming amount of power that we are just not intentional about using. Yeah, so whenever you feel powerless, you're gonna feel the need to escape, to use some form of escapism in order to create the illusion of control, to create the illusion of centeredness, which is really what you're looking for. In that centeredness, in that real centeredness is your true identity. That's pure consciousness, and that real state of centeredness is where you're clear, where you have so much clarity there. But when you can't reach that, you seek other forms, and one of the major things is just not being able to regulate your nervous system and your consciousness, just feeling a lot of fear, yeah, and a lot of fluster, most of the time not even knowing where it came from, because it's a pre-programming. And this pre-programming could have happened when you were a child, just forms of trauma from trauma that you inherited, because we know epigenetics. And so there's a lot of people who don't know how to stay centered throughout just the different changes that occur in life. And so one of the things that, one of the benefits of learning holistic thinking and the anatomy of the soul is that you get more awareness of the process, right? More awareness of your divinity and your divine power and what's going on and how the system works, so that when you are going through points of transformation, or you are trying to make a change in your life and you're making the changes, you know what's occurring in the system. So you're less likely to feel that fear, and you know what to do when it arises, right? So that's what I teach. Like with the models, when you learn like the models, because I have 6 different models that I teach with, they give you the power, like the ability to ground yourself in your power. And you know how they say trust the process. Well, you can trust the process a whole lot more when you know what the hell the process is. When you know what the process looks like, it makes it so much easier. But if you don't know what's going on, it creates a ton of fear. You feel powerless because, hey, like people are incredible. And I feel bad in the sense because I know intuition is also crazy. Like I said, intuition is mysterious. So intuition can give you a pain to like some type of hunch to quit your job right now. And you're like, quit my job? I don't have another job. Like, I'm just saying, because that's how intuition works. It's something that you know before you actually really know. So a lot of fear comes up around that, like in actually following these intuitions and things like that. It's just like, hold up. Like, what do you mean? Like, and so that could lead to people not following their intuition, is not knowing exactly what's going on and how it works and the role of intuition and how intuitions work and how to tap into your intuition. And so that creates a lot of fear. And it's ultimately just fear of yourself and fear of your power.
Yeah, I think the way that society is structured, and particularly the public education system, or really most education systems, are specifically designed to stamp out intuition in children.
Sure.
I think when you take a child who has their intuition that guides them, of course, children haven't been corrupted as much, hopefully, quite yet. And so they do naturally exist in their intuitive state, and they just wander around within, wherever they are, and kind of follow whatever is calling to them.
Exactly.
When you take that child existing in that beautiful, playful, intuitive state and try to cram them into a sit down, listen to this teacher that might be telling you some lies and some garbage and some absolute falsities, but accept it as fact, even though your teacher's lying to you. You can't question it. You can't think about it. Just write the answer down on the test and repeat and repeat and repeat over the years. And then you go home and your parents say, and you say, mommy, they said this, or I think this. No, they're the teacher. They're right. And you just get this intuition stamped out and replaced with a bit of expert worship is the term I like to use, because it's just trust the expert or prescribed expert in whatever the matter is. It's no wonder that you have people completely disconnected from their intuition. And when you add onto this all the fraudulent medical procedures that exist and are pushed upon people to disconnect them from their internal heart centers, to disconnect them and poison and damage their even areas of their brain responsible for intuitive thinking, it's really no wonder that you see people walking around akin to just drones, to zombies, to robots. And we're at the point of people being attacked so much that, honestly, as a realist, I don't think everyone can come back from it. I
Yeah.
think there are people that are so far gone that they will never, ever, ever be able to actually come back and exist as a real person, as a real thinking, feeling, intuiting person. I think people are just so far gone a lot of the time, and there's nothing we could do about it. And that's a hard thing for people to accept. People like in the space, such as yourself, that are specifically trying to work with it and make a change within people. I think there's a lot of people that just have this kind of idealist sense to them. No, everybody can heal. Everybody can do good. and then they just kind of either burn themselves out or waste their time or just look crazy because they spend time giving energy or trying to give energy, putting these thoughts or this foundation in people that are just so broken that it'll never happen.
No.
And that's why I think the true efforts are spent in just reaching the people that do resonate and do still have that sense of intuition and can be kind of guided back home. But not only that, but then the next generation creating them with these frameworks still installed and not allow them to be hindered or hampered. But I'm wondering, is that something you agree with? Are there people that are too far gone, or am I just too pessimistic? What do
So
you
I'm definitely going to say this. I don't have authority to decide that, right? So
We could think though. We can form potential conclusions based on what we've.
here's the problem with that, though. Forming conclusions around that is, I like to say this. There is tons of magic and miracles in the universe, right? And I feel like when we like, that's just not my place. For example, it's not my place to say, and I want to give the universe, the higher power, the opportunity to work, to do its job. Because even though we can create our reality, we are co-creators. And so there's a part of the manifestation process where it's your job to do absolutely nothing but fucking wait. Just sit there. Like, and that's the hardest part for most people. Because in that time, after we've done all of the, taken all of the aligned actions, acted on all of the things that we were getting, right? There's a part where we may not have any things. It's just the process is processing, okay? The process is processing, and there's nothing. But you have to allow the universe, the higher power, the opportunity to come in and do its job. And because what the higher power sees and what you see, totally different. But when you are like in that mindset and you're pinning down the energy, you're crushing the energy of, oh, I don't think this is possible because of this, because of that, because of you're now lowering your vibration, right? You're now lowering your hope, your faith. And this is part of the process. Part of the process when, when it's time for the universe to do its job, the only thing you need to do is hold your faith, is hold your vibration high. But when we start saying, oh, I don't think this is possible because we can't see it, because we don't know what's moving around for us and how it's moving and how it's working, because we can't see what the higher power sees and what's going on, we now start to just crush the energy, to kind of, it's like self-sabotage at this point. You done built up all this momentum, you're right there. And now you're self-sabotaging because you can't see the magic of the universe because it hasn't came through yet, but it's loading. So it's not my, I believe in a higher power that can do things that I can't do, that has a power that's way greater than mine. While I don't believe that we should be overpouring ourselves and exerting ourselves and sacrificing ourselves to help another person that is only going to watch us fucking die trying to do it, right? I do believe that change is possible because change happens every day. Change is literally the nature of the whole entire universe. And so just because I can't see how it's possible for somebody to change, I would never say that it will never happen. It's not my job.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, I think good always wins in the end. I think that's one of the universal laws. How could it not be, right? Why would God create a realm in which his faction does not win? But I think, yeah, yeah, and we don't have to go back and forth on it. Yeah, so I'm thinking on a societal level, yeah, I think we can get to a much better place. But I think, it is a spiritual battle. It is a spiritual war, and unfortunately, I think there are casualties in war. But let's switch gears a little bit because much of what you speak about and work with, etc., vibration, frequency, what have you, mentions music
Yeah.
naturally.
Yeah.
What do you think is the role of music in an individual, in society? And what do you think the role of modern music is that it's playing in society?
Oh, I love this question. Okay, so part of holistic thinking, which is just, again, it's systems thinking, it's linear, it's nonlinear thinking, circular thinking. Part of what characterizes this type of thought is the ability to take things that seemingly have no relation on the surface, they look to have no relation to each other at all. It's to take these things and actually say, okay, this is how this is influencing that, and that is influencing this. To the average eye, to the average linear thinking, these things are so unrelated. But a holistic thinker can say, no, this is definitely the cause of this. So, in my opinion, when it comes to like the crime, especially my culture, my God, I think the music is definitely controlling my culture and what we're doing and really, which we're murdering each other and the toxic relationships that we're having. And it's definitely the music that's controlling that, because music is nothing but emotions, thoughts, intuitions, and sensations. It's a simulation of the soul. So you got intro intent, chorus consciousness, verse voice, and bridge body. So the music basically is there to assure what the predominant stream of consciousness is, what the predominant focuses are in that society, right? So if the music is constantly talking about murder, and a lot of other misogynistic things, that I can't really say the way I want to say, lyric for lyric. But if that's what the music is doing, then that's what the society is going to do, because it's creating a predominant thought. It's giving a thought that emotional intensity. The role of the instrumental is to evoke an emotion. The role of the chorus is to pin our focus to a thought, to an idea, right? And that chorus repeats itself over and over. So remember when I said the type of thoughts that create our reality are thoughts with emotional intensity. You have that instrumental that's there to evoke the emotion, and repetitive thoughts. You have the chorus there to make sure that that idea is repeating itself over and over. And what happens when a thought is repetitive and has the emotional intensity is now it becomes a belief. So these things are forming in us, and they're structuring our subconscious in the way the subconscious, the programming that's in the subconscious. And when that happens, the subconscious mind creates 95% of our reality. And so those are the things that we're creating in our reality. And so when I talk about feedback loops and knowing the feedback loop of a system, a feedback loop is a type of structure that feeds back into itself. It basically, this is the natural idea of karma. This is the where karma comes from, is this. So whatever is in that subconscious mind is the set point, right? That's a set way of a set, like a fixed pattern. Like the instrumental is a beat pattern. It's a pattern of things that are fixed in that person's mind. Typically, like your map and your way of seeing the world. So music's role is to create a predominant pattern within the person, and that's this person's set point. So this set point, whatever's created in here, will be reflected back into that reality. And so that's the karma. Is the set point has causality. It's the cause, and then everything else is an effect of whatever that pre-programming is, whatever's in that subconscious, whatever's at that set point. So, for instance, if you have a house, right, and you set the temperature of that house at 72 degrees, what's going to be the temperature that's going to be reflected back into the house is 72 degrees. So whatever is set here in your subconscious, whatever map and perspectives that you hold here is what's going to be reflected back into your reality. So the role that music plays, because music is using the laws of manifestation, is using the process of manifestation. Music is basically like a control system. It makes sure that we have certain predominant, ways of thinking that serve the powers that be.
Now, would there be a market for such music, though, if people weren't already feeling in such ways. If people didn't already love murder and killing, would they be drawn to such music?
I say this. Music, the law of attraction is about creating your reality. So if you're using it in music, I would say yeah, because if you're using it in music, you're creating your customers, you're creating your audience, you're creating these people. This is the only thing you're feeding them, and you're going to feed it to them over and over again. When I cut on that radio station, it's going to play the same 5 songs over and over and over and over, and this is the only thing they're going to feed me, right?
But are people out there with guns to their head preventing them from changing that radio station?
No, they don't have guns to their head. But the thing is, when you're programmed to do something, and you're not aware of how your system works, when you're not aware of how the subconscious mind works, you're just absorbing these things and you think that this is you. You think that these are your thoughts. These are not your thoughts. This is not you. You were not this until you came into interaction with this. Like I listened to, you may not even like we're programmed to like the music. We have no choice. Like through and by way of the laws of manifestation. It's a programming. It's literally programming your subconscious mind. The more conscious you are of how your divinity works, your divine nature is, then you'll say, like, yeah, let me change because I know what this is doing to me on a subconscious level and how this is impacting my reality. But if you don't know that, then you're going to listen to it. Eventually, they create hooks, right? The hooks are to hook your attention. They're to catch your attention, make something catchy. And it doesn't even have to be something good. But once they have a catch, then you're hooked and you're in there. They pulled you inside of this matrix and you're going to go back and you're going to create a pattern around that hook. And now you're sucked in and you're in this. You don't know how you got here. You don't know how you got here. You don't even know that you're not where you were before. It never even dawns on you. Right. So yeah, so they create their audience. They create these people. These people are created. They don't have to target somebody or wait for a certain individual to see who likes this. They want money and they want it now. And they're going to make sure that they create the audience that they're the type of people that they want to, the type of people that feed the system. How about that? They're going to create the type of people that's going to feed the system.
Do you think that there is at all a role or function or a positive way to consume what we are referring to as stereotypically negative music? Can it be used in a conscious way that it's enjoyed, but not necessarily those potentially harmful messages let in?
I see what you're saying. So we want to listen to the harmful messages, but we don't want to act them out.
Well, we want, yeah, perhaps. Well, there's multiple things because perhaps we're talking about, gangster rap or rap and hip hop naturally right here, and or we could even extrapolate out to a lot of pop music. But you referenced kind of those messages, right, of murder, etc.
Right.
You think it's possible for someone maybe that lacks an appropriate amount of aggression or oomph to them to kind of get those messages, and they're down here as like a shy little whatever, and then there's this hyper aggression, and then them kind of use that to bring themselves up to a healthy level of what I mean, but then they still know, okay, I'm not going to go out and murder people, I never have that inclination, but let me absorb some of that high intensity to improve my life.
I got you. So here's the thing, as even I struggle with this, right? The original thing to realize is, like I said, it's a programming. These are things, when we really sit down and listen to the music, that if we weren't programmed to think like this, when we really break it down, they are logically unattractive ideas. The things that they're saying are logically unattractive. But because when you're using subliminal messages bypass the conscious logical mind. So you're not using your logic. You're just vibing to the beat. It literally bypasses. It's subliminal messages just bypass. So personally, I think I still listen to rap music. Not gonna lie, I also still feed the system. I still feed the system. As conscious as I want to be, as much as I know, I still know that I feed the system. And it's an addiction. It becomes an addiction. You can't even think of a world that's enjoyable without certain type of music that you know is toxic. And it's not that that world doesn't exist. It's just that you are addicted to the system that we have that's literally detrimental and toxic to ourselves. So we have an addiction and a toxic relationship to the system that we're in relation to, where we know it's bad for us. We know that they're not serving, our greatest good, and we still feed the system.
Yeah.
So is it possible? No, I don't think it's possible at all. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I think if that's something you're doing, that you're still feeding the system, even to encourage something, because if you're still listening and you still have that desire to listen, supply and demand, then somebody still wants to make it. Mm-hmm. Somebody still wants to put those toxic messages in the world. And so you know that somebody somewhere that's not as conscious as you to actually act on those things, that's more subject to act on those things, maybe because of the environment that they're already in, right? You're still feeding those people because those people think it's cool. They think it's cool at this point, and they don't have, the resources within their environment to break loose of the matrix that they're in. Meanwhile, you do, but you're still feeding the system that goes back and tells them that this is cool and that this is the right thing to do. So no, I don't. But like I said, it's just, it's complex.
Yeah, my relationship with music is very interesting, and I've used music to change my life in a positive way a few times. So I've told this story on other podcasts before, but when I was young, I was not the man that I am today. Well, in fact, I was a boy, of course, but very, very much different in persona, right? I was still the same internal core, but I was very quiet. I was very reserved. I was very just kind of to myself. And as such, I wasn't super social. I found myself feeling on the intelligent side of things, but didn't think that I was a social person. Because there's kind of that dichotomy that's presented and created for people. And I was never into music at all. When I decided, hey, I don't like what the results that I'm getting in life, in the sense that, I don't have a great social life, what have you, I decided to get into music. It was like, all right, music is something that people bond over, this, that, whatever. It's, people are into it. Let's try it out. So this is back in the days of LimeWire. Do you remember LimeWire?
I do. And BearShare? Oh my gosh.
Get a bit of music and give yourself 5 different computer viruses at the same time.
AOL.
Oh my God, AOL. I actually just got rid of my AOL email like a week ago. I was still using the same AOL email as one of my emails. Anyway, so I started downloading music on LimeWire, and I was more drawn to like the hip hop and rap and stuff. Is that just because of my innate personality that I had within me? Or is that because my father was, from the city and, himself was into hip hop and rap and stuff? I don't know. But I found myself really enjoying the music of Lil Jon specifically. And it just hit. Whatever it was in his music, it was what I needed. And so it was 2 songs specifically that I first came across on LimeWire. It was What You Gonna Do and Put Yo Hood Up. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Lil Jon beyond the baseline level or at all, but
Lil Jon.
What's that?
I am very familiar.
Yeah. And so he is, for anyone that doesn't know, screams. He screams at a big
in my head. As soon as you said it, his voice was in my head so loud, I just wanted to scream. But I was like,
exactly. No. His music is all him hollering and yelling and just going crazy, high energy, intensity, aggression. I don't give a F what you gonna do, this, that, the other. And I resonated so deeply with it. I was so drawn towards it that I just dove into it, started downloading all of his music. And that's what I chose consciously to inundate myself with as a young, shy boy. And with that energy, I instilled in myself that boisterousness, that confidence, that kind of high energy that allowed me to change my life. And
Yeah.
I ended up becoming more social, becoming more confident, becoming more just putting myself out there, carrying that energy. Not in a, hey, I'm going to go fight everyone way, but in a, let me just get my energy up. And so that's why I say, and there's, we could talk about different things and where I am now with my music because I've varied throughout the years. There's been times, especially when I went through kind of conscious awakenings later on, more so that I stopped listening to rap entirely or would only listen to like religious music or spiritual music or just kind of reggae vibes, good vibes. And then where we're at these days is now I'm kind of, I do enjoy like rap music and stuff, but with the caveat, sometimes it's just too much. I will always be monitoring myself and say, like, all right, yeah, this hip hop, rap, whatever, this, that, okay, it's a vibe. I like the beat, and sometimes I'll even laugh at the lyrics. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. This is awful. I was like, I can't take this anymore. I gotta shut this off. And that's why I'll advocate. And I enjoy life now more that I consciously kind of appreciate the ridiculous and crazy music. I think I'm more well-rounded now and stable now as a person than in those time periods where I was only consuming that like kind of religious music or just the la-di-da love music. So that's why I'll advocate for perhaps there is a place for it with the conscious enjoyment.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, so there's so much information that's like coming to me right now. One, I'm going to break this down into two things. First, I'm going to say this, then we're going to come back to it. The first thing I'm going to say is what you did was integrated your shadow, right? So this is a part of manifestation and holistic thinking manifestation, particularly. So the shadow aspects of you are the parts of your personality that you shut out. You try to avoid this type of personality or these types of traits because most of the time we associate it with something bad. So maybe you were this shy, you were, it's not that, he was not that the part of who you are now was always in you.
Agreed.
We have all of the energies inside of us. Holistic thinking, we are whole beings. We have all of the energies inside of us, right? So the idea is not to demonize any energy, but to know when is the appropriate time to exercise that energy. So what music was able to do to you was to pull out this part of you that you were avoiding, that was in your shadow, that was in a part of yourself that you weren't looking at. So it helped to pull out that shadow. And when you integrate your shadow, you become more whole, more of a harmonious person, and you're able to, because your shadow side can get in the way of you and what you want. Because think of it like this, the person that you want to be is obviously a different person than you are in this moment. And so the attributes that you need to get there lie within that shadow, those parts of yourself that you're avoiding. Maybe you associate those aspects with somebody that you didn't like growing up or whatever. But the thing is to go within that shadow, see the attributes that you're not incorporating, figure out why you're not incorporating these aspects, and then figure out what aspect is going to get you there to being that person that has that thing that you want right now. Because there's something within you that you're not tapping into, but it's within you for sure, because we're whole beings. We have all of the energies. So that's what you did. And that works for listeners and fans of music. And it also works great for the musician themselves, because the musician also gets to kind of like release this energy. It's a creative self-expression. So whereas though, yeah, we don't live in a perfect world, right? We don't live in a perfect world. Good things happen, bad things happen. What music allows an artist to do, especially rap music, is to kind of get that shadow off, right? It's to kind of say, well, hey, I did this. I don't even want to repeat it. What came to my mind. But just to say, like, hey, I did this, and kind of like give them that freedom of expression of just admitting to and airing out the uglier parts of themselves, rather having to bottle that side up. Because whenever we're restricting or hiding parts of ourselves, it's restricting and hiding parts of our reality that we want to access, period. But whenever you're able to just communicate and be authentic about everything that you are, then you just have this freedom that allows your stream of consciousness to flow, just that allows like flow within your inner being. And the more flow you have within yourself, the more flow you'll experience in your outer world, right? So it's like the truth will set you free. So rap music is like this creative self-expression that allows people to say the ugliest things, but it allows that freedom of expression. Yeah, it allows people to just kind of get that energy off, right?
Yeah.
It's just sad that they're dumping it, in society, and there's no balance within Black music. It's like they've completely gotten rid of all of our positive forms of music, like the jazz, like the rock, like even positive R&B. All we hear now is breakup songs. There's no baby making
You know
music,
what?
soul music anymore.
That's one that I hate. That's one that I hate. R&B is ruined. R&B is ruined because that's some of my favorite. When I
Yeah,
was growing up, it was the hip hop, but it was also the R&B.
exactly. It's not
And I
there
love
anymore.
R&B. R&B could teach you to be smooth. It could teach you to be suave. It could teach you to be loving and sensual, especially
Uh,
for men who are disconnected from that side.
mhm.
But yeah, modern R&B is just it's awful. It's simp music or it's breakup music and it's broken heart and oh my god, blah blah blah. It's awful. It really is, and that's such a shame. And that's why I feel old when I do this, but I'll mostly listen to like the same stuff I listened to when I was younger because it was just better. But it was less degenerated. It was getting there, but it was less degenerated. There was still masculine males and feminine females, and oh man, I love. There's nothing more beautiful than like a love song or like a 2000s R&B song between like a male singer and a female singer. Oh my God, that just has it's like that's soul music, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really I'll always break it down to the conscious enjoyment of it and to be able to extrapolate what you want from the particular music because I think hip hop and rap music is inherently some of the most masculine music. And that's why a lot of males do gravitate towards it. And I think there's good things in it too. So nowadays when I'm listening to rap music, I'll take out those good elements of it or the good lyrics of it and really feel those. And then when they're talking about the nonsense, the drugs, the killing, this, that, I'm like, like that's funny. But again, not everyone can do that. Perhaps I am supporting an industry that people are harming themselves with. But, when I am cruising around and listening to music, I'm like, all right, Beamer, Benz, or Bentley, jeans are never empty. Bam. All right, I need that. I'm going to get that. you
Okay,
know?
so here's the thing. The problem with it is that it's just not a balance. It's not whole anymore because we don't see the different types of music within this genre and the positive messages. So it's imbalanced in that it's just promoting one side of humanity. Humanity is made of both good and bad, and it should be reflected. So we should be able to have access to the good music and the good positive messages just as well as we have to the bad and the negative. Because like I said, we're whole beings and all of that energy is within us, whether we want to accept that or not. It's all there. So we should be able to access both of them equally. And I think that's what's not fair with Black music is that we don't have equal access to it. It's like they're pushing one side of it. That's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to say was that, okay, so Pythagoras said that the highest goal of music is to connect one's soul to the divine nature, not entertain. That was his quote. And I I love entertainment. And I love entertainment. I love music especially. I'm more into music than I am TV. TV pisses me off. Unless it's like HGTV or something like that. Something completely stupid. But because there's so many agendas. Like that
Yeah.
and it just pisses me off. But yeah, so he says the highest goal of music. I thought what I think would be the most balanced and harmonious way of doing things instead of just taking all the bad music out and throwing it in the trash, because that's not good either. Because that energy has to go somewhere. Because it is inside of you, and you do need to be educated on that as much as the other. What happens when we throw things in the shadow? So if we were to throw our bad aspects in the shadow, is that we'll end up it'll end up actually controlling us because we don't want to accept it, and we're actually giving it energy and power in that way, power over us. Like what you don't rule rules you, in a sense. So you have to own it, and you have to know how to own it and how to integrate it in your personality in the most effective way possible. So that's the overall goal. And that's something that you learn in holistic thinking manifestation, that even the parts of you that you avoid are part of you, is a part of who you are from a holistic perspective. But back to what Pythagoras said. So what I teach is that music is a simulation of the soul. And by teaching that through music, you're using music to connect one's soul to their divine nature, which is to create our reality. So I just think we just need to have just understand that you can use music to connect your soul to your divine nature, and you can also use music strictly for entertainment. But we have to know both sides. We can't just be exposed to one side, because that's a form of manipulation and control. If you're not teaching us that we can use music in different ways that empower us, and you're only teaching us how to be controlled by music, or you're only using music in manipulative ways to create certain forms of thought that feed your system, then you're just controlling us. There's no freedom there. You're not giving us our free will. So we should have free will. And so I guess I'm taking back what I said earlier based on what you said, which gave me a lot of insight, which was absolutely like a phenomenal example of, yeah, of how music, even in its most negative and darkest sense, can actually be used to help us integrate parts of our personality that could potentially empower us, because it's really just about how we use our energies.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation because, I'm all for free market, but the free market is manipulated as well. And that's why it comes to let's be aware of what's going on. We could talk about how the establishment of music is one thing, the big record companies, the this, the that, the radio shows, this, that, whatever, and what they put out, and how they are degenerating society as a whole, or specifically the black community. Those are two separate things, or part of a whole. We could talk about how when people in the entertainment industry, be it TV or music, try to purchase record companies or TV channels to put out positive messages to the black community, how they get systematically dismantled, destroyed, jailed, killed, have all sorts of allegations thrown at them that come up out of nowhere. Oh, Bill Cosby, Michael Jackson. But we could also talk about how today's day and age, we have more systems beyond just the system of disseminating music, disseminating entertainment, or shows, this, that, the other. Look at the beauty that is in 2024. That we are able to chat through this screen, you and I, and this is a show that's going out. That anyone, an independent artist, can upload their music to Spotify, to SoundCloud, to YouTube. And so we are seeing an ever growing amount of alternative options beyond what just the system is prescribing for us. And so we can sit here and talk about how things aren't fair, or we can focus on the beauty that is the here and now, in that we can circumvent the manipulation more and more in today's day and age. And that's an important part to focus on, because it's very easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom of, all these things are happening, all these, people want to keep us down, this and that. And yes, they do. But we can do things about it, not just in our choice of consumption, but our choice of production of alternatives. And I know we have 2 minutes here. I do have a couple minutes to run over if you would like, because I would like to hear about actionables and your actionables. For someone that has enjoyed what you've said here today and the kind of conversations that we've had and your way of thinking, how can someone work with you, or how do you work with people to kind of help them explore this mindset or these modalities more?
So I do two things. I do the teaching, where so I'll give you all of the tools that you need to know using the modeling and simulation. The model allows you to visualize, these spiritual principles and factors that that are spiritual, non-physical. That's what the mental models allow you to do. And you can use those tools yourself to become your own spiritual guru or your own manifestation coach. Or if you want to work personally one-on-one, I'll guide you through, whatever you want to manifest, even if it's just like spiritual enlightenment, even if it's just like self-discovery, even if you just want to become more aware of yourself. Like that's a manifestation. Whatever goal that you have that you want, and there's a gap between getting there and your present reality, that's manifesting. Being able to get from here to there, to set an intention and to achieve that intention.
That's awesome. And do you have any like kind of real great success stories of clients that you'd like to kind of toss in? Have you seen some really cool things happen with the people
Oh,
you've
I
worked
am
with?
new in my practice. I just launched my practice this year, but I will talk about some of my manifestations.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so one of the most recent, which was pretty odd, was so I purchased a home back in 2020, and I had about I went through about three loan officers before I finally was able to settle on before I actually found the one who got me what I was asking for. So, being an independent contractor, there were like in a first time home buyer, there was a lot of things I just did not know about the process, right? So, for instance, I tried to write off as much money as possible, and that ended up kicking me in the butt because I was only able to afford a certain amount of house based on the actual income that I claimed and that I didn't write off, right? So what was left after I wrote everything off was what I had to work with. Didn't know that. I'm just being honest. So I was like highly pissed throughout this process. I've been working so hard and I just want what I want and I feel like I deserve it because I've been busting my ass and just being so just pure just to get here, just to get here. And I'm dealing with all of these loan officers, and they're trying to put me in a box, basically, in a box in the middle of the fucking hood. And I'm just like, I do not want this house. What is this? You're offering me crumbs. Like, so I was getting really upset. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do, my little ritual, and we're gonna manifest the house that we want. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell all of these loan officers, bye, leave me alone. And I'm going to, and they were loan officers that like I was picking, that like people were giving me, like the homeowner to the house that I was renting gave me a loan officer. My real estate agent sent me a loan officer. Just yeah, different people. Until I finally decided like, okay, I'm gonna go online, look at people's portfolios, and pick who I want. And as soon as I did that, after doing my rituals or whatever, which is basically where I send my intention out into the universe and I listen to my pings and just things like that. Okay, so I found this guy. I sent him three homes, and I'm in order: three, two, one. Number one being the one that I want the most. He responds, "I'm gonna get you the number one house, right? Number one house is yours. That's the one that you're gonna get." And we actually got it. Okay. So the thing that was creepy was the first thing that was creepy. Uh, when we get to the house and we explore the house in person, they did not paint the walls back. And like literally every wall that all of the walls were painted, and all of the walls were painted the color that I had in my previous house that I painted, like the exact color, like not the exact color, but that a shade of it. Because I had like some really like metallic paints, and this would be like a flat version of the same color, right? A second thing that happened was after I moved in and kind of got settled in the house, I have two neighbors. I'm on like 4 acres myself, and we all just have like, so I only have two neighbors. I found out that both of them have my last name.
What?
Okay.
What do you?
Yeah. They're related. I'm not related to them, but that was something I just did not know.
And your last name is what? Is it a common last name or?
It's Young. So I don't think that's like it sounds like it would be popular, but I don't meet too many people with that last name. But it sounds like it would be pretty common. But what I did learn was that they say in this city that I live in that there's a lot of people with that last name. So yeah, they say like the Youngs live in this area, really populate this area. However, I'm not a part, like I don't know them. Like, so now everybody who's over here, in this neck of the woods shares the same last name. All right. So then one day my mom comes over and she's like, not with your address being my birthday. And so I didn't notice. I was like, Mom, what do you mean? It has a number 2 on it. Like, that's not your birthday. Your birthday doesn't have a 2 in it. Here's the catch. My grandmother and my mom have the same birthday. So she's like, the 2 is for me and your grandmother. And I was like, oh shit. So yeah. So my address is my mom and my grandmother's birthday. And my neighbors all share my last name.
It's interesting how things just kind of fall in front of you when you surrender to the process and you.
And there was one more thing. I'm sorry. The last thing was the loan officer said that he was going to help me and make sure I got that number 1 house because my middle name, which is Ayende, which is the name that you were looking at right there, he said his best friend's name is Ayende and he loves his best friend. And so he was going to make sure that he got me that house.
Awesome. It all comes together. It's very interesting, and when people start to positively explore consciousness at a deeper level than surface, it's not uncommon for people to experience things such as that. So that's a wonderful example. And the fact that you try to help people experience things like that and experience how life can just work for you instead of feeling like a constant battle and clashing of things not working. That's a great example. And so if someone would like to get in contact with you to work with you or to just check out your content or, see what you got going on, where can people go? Where would you direct people to check you out?
My website, www.dreammusictrinity.com, dreammusictrinity.com. And also, if you like to hear me just go through some of the models and explain, what I teach about, and sometimes in some funny ways, sometimes it's serious, go on TikTok and it's at Dream Music Trinity. Everything for me is literally Dream Music Trinity.
That's a very nice
analogy that I deal with.
Yeah, awesome. And last question. Is there any particular message you'd like to leave our listeners and viewers off with?
Man, I just say like the universe really wants to work for you and you really are powerful. So yeah, don't shut out your dreams. Figure out how you can make them happen. Like, come on, like live your fullest life. Go after it. And yeah, the universe wants to work for you. You just gotta know how to work with the universe to get what it is that you want. And you are really powerful. You have a lot of power.
Beautiful. Akila, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Another episode of the Health King's Court, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Health has come to a close. Let me know in the comments what you thought of today's episode. Did you like what Akila had to say? Did you not like it for some reason? Whether you agreed or disagreed with how she worded things. Certainly very interesting to take a listen to because there's no denying that everything in life is connected. And everything is fractal. Everything is a microcosm or a macrocosm of other things. So it's interesting to explore the way different people go about explaining how that functions. As always, subscribe, please, to the channel on whatever platform you're watching on. ZachTheHealthKing.com is where you'll find all of my links, all of my podcast links, all of my social links, etc. Stay tuned. Plenty episodes coming your way.